Hey everyone, I am Megan Caper, medical intuitive and energy healer, and I am here today having a conversation with Novalee Wilder. I'm really excited about this because she knows a lot about a topic that I don't know a lot about, and so I'm excited to talk to her and learn more. Novalee, welcome. Tell me, hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you.
Um,
Yeah. Uh,
yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me a little intro. Who's Novalee?
yeah, a little intro. Okay. The little intro goes, I'm Danish. I'm from Denmark. Tiny country in Scandinavia. That's like the north of Europe, in case, you didn't spend a lot of time in geography memorizing Europe. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a professional numerologist. I'm an author. I have a podcast. I'm starting a school. I'm also a trained actress. Spend a lot of time in the theater and on stage. And it's kind of weird now being in LA where everyone is in the business, but I actually stepped out of it a little bit to do my numerology thing. And everyone, like even my dad, who was never a super big fan of my acting career, is like, so are you auditioning? And like right now I'm like, no, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm doing a whole different thing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in LA. I'm actually a
Mm-hmm.
fourth generation Los Angelino, believe it or not, which is
That's
rare for
rare.
LA. Yeah, there's not a lot of LA natives there, let alone people whose families been there for generations. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I am not in the movie business because I grew up in LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird, yeah, it's LA is an interesting place for anyone doing acting or directing or filmmaking or anything. It's an interesting culture.
It's just like it's a touch field, or like you can't really be in the city and not have friends in the business in some way. Even your hairdresser might have a previous life on the stage or in a movie or whatever.
Totally. Yes. No,
Yeah.
you're exactly right. Like I almost all of my, like, yeah, my hairdresser, like everyone sort of has given it a stab in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why a lot of people moved to LA. It was also really weird growing up there because like every incredibly attractive person from all over the planet moves to LA or New
Yeah.
York, LA to try it. And so my like self-concept of beauty, like there's that whole joke about like, they're in LA 7, but whatever, like a Dallas 10 or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But
Like,
that's true. It's true.
yeah,
I noticed growing up in Denmark, and I will say that Danes are very stylish, or like, like the whole mid-century modern is like from Denmark and Scandinavia, like put together, whatever, stylish, also of course like a little more affluent. And I remember moving to New York and suddenly I felt way more pretty. And that's not that there is not beautiful people in New York. There's like a
yeah,
ton of beautiful people, but there's just more of a variety.
yeah.
And now that I'm in LA, I suddenly feel that little like, ooh, okay, we're pretty here.
Yeah.
We wear that kind of makeup on a Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I
Um,
have to tell you my funny Northern European attractive humans story.
yeah.
So I've never been to Denmark, but I was in Iceland.
Oh, and they're pretty there too. Yeah.
They're very pretty there. And it happened to be, I was in a bar and it was on Icelandic Independence Day. I didn't know I was going to be in Iceland during Icelandic Independence Day. It just
Mm-hmm.
happened to be. And so we're in this bar and it was packed. And the person I was traveling with at the time and I had found a table. It was like a 4-seater table. It was a booth. And we'd gotten there kind of early, but the place was getting busier and busier and busier. And we were almost about to leave. I think he had run off to go use the restroom. And then he was coming back. So I was at the table by myself. And this woman comes up and she says to me something in Icelandic. And I was like, I don't speak Icelandic. She goes, oh, English. She says, oh, do you mind if I sit at this table with you? And I'm looking at her and she is the most attractive person I have ever seen in my life. Like cheekbones up to here, blue eyes, dark hair. And so I was sort of like, yeah, okay. But I was a little like, what? And so I was like, sure, yeah, sit down. And so she sits down, she starts talking to me. It turns out she's a flight attendant with like Icelandic Air, so her English is perfect and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
She's enjoying, we're talking about America and Iceland and all that. And then my friend comes back from the bathroom and he sees her and he's sort of like, oh my God, how did she get this very attractive woman to sit at our table? And so he sits down and we start chatting and she's like, oh, my boyfriend is at the bar getting beers. Can we get you some? And there was a line like 20 minutes long, get beers. We're like, sure. So she signals down to him to like get 2 more. but there's, the bar's packed. And then 5 minutes later, he comes up, and I thought she was the most attractive person on the planet. No, he was the most attractive person I've ever seen. I lost my ability to speak for about 20 seconds. I was like, so yes, very stylish and very attractive people, those Northern Europeans. I can confirm this from my limited experiment of that one night in a bar on Icelandic Independence Day.
And we think we don't notice, but we do. There's some human, I don't know, like deep animal instinct thing about like scanning rooms, and not even like putting yourself on a scale, but just going like, oh, okay, pretty room, like pretty people in here. Yeah. And like, oh, put together in a certain way or whatever. I think it's very natural to like scan in that way.
Yeah. It's funny, how we do that, sort of, do all this rating, and depending on like where we grew up and who we're surrounded by, sort of what becomes the norm.
Yeah, and what we feel comfortable with also. I think that's also,
true. That's true. So tell me, I have everyone fill out, like, I'm just meeting Novalee today. I do not know her. That's just part of what I like want to do with this, is I want to meet new people and like get to know them and talk about what really drives them. And so I have people fill out this little like informational thing about like, what do you want to talk about? And one of the things you said was you wanted to talk about how changing your name changed your life. I'm fascinated by that. I know people that have changed their name for various reasons, like, maybe their family of origin was not great and they didn't like want to be carrying around that name anymore, or, again, growing up in LA, stage name. So I know a lot of people that changed their name because, Zubel Blazkowski as a last name, like wasn't going to do it, as a professional actor. But I want to hear about this. Tell me, how did changing your name change your life?
Yeah. It's kind of a short story, but also like could be really long. So back in 2014, I have a friend. I still have the friend, and maybe we all have this friend where like, they take one step forward in life and we go like, oh, we going there? Cool. And then we take one step forward in life. I have these friendships in my life where we push each other. And with this friend, we both do it, take a step somewhere and the other person goes like, ooh, interesting. Are we doing this? So this friend changed her name with the help of numerology, went to a neurologist, got told, you know what, certain things in your name, like certain vibrations are kind of like filtering your experience of life. And I can help you if you want to like change your name and get better vibrations and more support. We can do that. And she was like, sure. And I was like, wait, what? Are we doing this now? Like, first it was gluten, then it was Spanx, then it was all these things that we've tried and whatever. And now we're changing our names. Like, this is a little far out. But I had moved to New York and I had really realized, and I was like in acting school, and I was really facing my own demons and my own like conditioning. Nothing makes you more aware of who you are than being away from home. Like there are no more Danish people than the Danes out in the world. And nothing is more American than an American in Paris or something. Like there's just something about like, how we grew up and like how we face it in a different atmosphere and like experience. And I was super challenged, and like learning to act in English, meaning like by like not thinking, just like letting words run through me, experiences, emotions. And I was really like, oh, I've worked so hard on so many parts of me and it's just actually not working. So I was a little bit on that, like, let me take a jump, like a leap of faith. Like I am ready to invite in a different approach, because I had done the 12-step groups. I had done the, therapy. I had done like physical releases, and like I had worked on myself, and I'd also been an actor. You can't do this work without knowing your instrument on a certain level. It's it's stupid not to learn the instrument, because you'll never be able to play it if you don't know it. So I went to a numerologist and I was super skeptical. And then just based on my name and my birthday and like the calculations she talked about me in that like scary, eerily way where you're like, you could never know this. And also how like, I'm almost like, ugh, like it's too overwhelming that you're on the inside of me, not talking just about my actions in the world, but my thoughts behind these actions and the dysfunctional like patterns in me. And I was like, this is horrible and amazing. And if you say it can get better, then I'm willing to jump.
Yeah.
So I changed my name. When you go to a numerologist, you get like lists with names you can pick from. It's not like they give you just this one name you can then have.
Right.
You just get the name vibrations that you're going for, and then you make your own name. So I picked my own name, which is, by the way, super empowering. Really a thing that I think a lot of people are not super happy with their names, just in general. Like if they had the chance and nobody had an opinion, that's also the thing. Lots of people have opinions about names. But if no one could have an opinion, I think a lot more people would actually just change their name. Make it a little more pretty, cut out a middle name, you know, change the spelling if it's too hard. Like, I think it's interesting how in any society, almost any society, like our names is the one thing we don't change unless we get married. And then it's mostly the women.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a whole patriarchy part there about like being owned and
yeah.
and stuff like that. And I also feel like that now in the US. I can tell with some of my clients that like slavery and like not being able to trace your ancestry back to someone who actually had a name that was not a colonizer or not like a slave owner is like a thing, like a whole different level. Also.
Right. Or our names in America, our names got, like my name got changed when my relatives came over through Ellis Island to something less ethnic. Right.
Yes.
So it was like, you know, the Americanization or the, you know, whiteification or whatever of our names. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole thing there too. Yeah. So I changed my name, and I can honestly say that if I had not lived it, I would not believe it. I met the man that's now my husband, and I was like, wait, what? I have been single for embarrassingly like long years and years. And who are you and what is going on? Why am I already in love with you? Why do I know I want to marry you? I've never wanted to marry anyone, like ever. Like what is going on? I'm kind of scaring myself in like the fact that I was not repeating the patterns of dysfunction that I could see in myself in other relationships. I was like, why is this working? This is crazy. Why is it working?
Yeah.
We won the green card lottery. So we could suddenly, talk about luck.
Yeah.
I had not been used to luck. I was not very lucky before.
Yeah.
We won the green card lottery, and we had to stay out of the US for a year. He's from Germany. And then we came back, we moved back to New York, and I was doing my numerology thing. And suddenly this publishing house contacted me and was like, do you want to write a book about numerology? And I was like, you know what? I would love to do that. Thank you for asking. So like the whole, I'm mentioning some of the things that are like goals that people have, you know, winning the green card lottery, getting to stay in the US, writing a book, getting to write a book, getting someone to pay you for writing a book.
Right.
I want to say that like the emotional level, like how it feels on the inside is even more dramatic than some of the outside things. But the outside things are sometimes easier to like convey. Like I also lost a lot of weight. And people are like, oh, you lost a lot of weight. That's dramatic. And I was like, yeah, I didn't notice that I lost all the weight. Like I was focused on other things in my life, and I was really, really happy. But yeah, that was like one of the things.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does this, I don't know much of anything about numerology. This is sort of what I was alluding to when I said, you know, a lot about something I don't know a lot about. And I am, I'm an intuitive, I'm a psychic, and I'm still very tend to be skeptical about things. I'm like the most skeptical woo-woo person. Like I joke, because my whole background was science. I was pre-med and I worked in the healthcare field for a while. And so I didn't grow up in a family that was into like this stuff at all. So I'm, you know, I still have that thing where like, I'm so curious about this stuff, but I'm like, how does it work? How does it work?
How does it work?
So tell me what's the process? So you said it's birthday and name, and then can you explain a little bit to me, like, then what do you do with that information? Like,
so most people know astrology as like a system of like, oh, you have this kind of personality or life lesson or traits, good and bad. You know, like when people hear about astrology, they're like, oh, I'm a Leo, or my sun is in Cancer, or like whatever. There's like a whole system there. Well, astrology couldn't exist without numerology, because you need the numbers. You need like what date, where in the world, you know, the whole system of like creating I mean, when does the sun set and when does it rise? Like, we have created a whole system around that, a whole number system. And numerology looks exclusively at the numbers. So even something like zodiac signs and stuff like that, we translate it into numbers. So we can look at a birthday and look at the numbers in that birthday and say, okay, this is like, you have certain life goals, certain life challenges, certain gifts that you have that you want to explore in this lifetime. We can't tell you how. I love when people are like, please tell me what to do with my life so I can get like 100% success.
I get that when I do psychic readings for people. They're like, just tell me what to do. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how this
that's
works.
not how it works.
Trust me, if that's how it works, I would have won the lottery by like, last year. I'll be talking to you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And
it's also, again, it's not the goals, it is the freaking journey.
Right.
So
exactly,
how do you get there? How do you work
to win the lottery, you will, regardless of my help or not, right?
Yeah. And also, like, if you win the lottery, you will realize that that's not the end all be all, whatever.
Right. You still have the same lessons you had before. For
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So like, we can look at a birthday and see like everything in there, what kind of personality, or we could also translate and say like, what did this soul want to do? Like, how did they want to experience the world? What kind of like lesson? I mean, it's such a like, I don't want to have any lessons. I just want to have fun. But like, there are lessons, and there is like a sense of karma also about like how many times we get to try out certain lives, like reincarnation and stuff like that. How many times do we experience this, and like how much of our like previous lives can we draw into or release now, and like vows we've made and stuff like that. Now the interesting thing is that like very rarely, even if people are born in the exact same moment, even twins, they don't get the same names. Like, names are the thing that changes the whole experience of being the soul on earth. And behind every letter is also a number. So when we look at the letters and numbers behind a name, we get a sense of like what kind of vibration that is. And it's usually helpful. I feel like it's helpful in these Instagram times to talk about filters, because we all understand, like, if you put a filter on something, it seems darker, lighter, nicer to look at, more gritty or whatever. But name vibrations are kind of like filters that we think the world is a certain way because we perceive it through a filter. And that's also why, like, sometimes names can be very supportive because they're like filtering in a way that you're already doing. I feel like often when I point to successful people, and again, I want to say successful is also happy. Right. You don't have to have a lot of material success to be successful if you're happy doing what you're doing. But often people get more visible to us if they're like lifted to some kind of status, politicians, celebrities, authors, whatever, when they're doing something and we're like, oh, you're so good at it and you look like you're having fun, I'll have what she's having. Right. And often that's because the name vibrations are kind of like just supporting what they're already supposed to be doing, or whatever is already happening in their birthday.
Interesting.
And on the other hand, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what is the system that's underlying like how these numbers get assigned to different qualities or whatnot? Is it like a sacred geometry thing? It's
all the layers. I mean, numerology fits into all the systems because, I'm a numerologist. I'm going to have to see it like this, that's the thing that started everything. Like the sacred geometry, the Kabbalah, all major religions have some kind of numerology component. Mm-hmm. It's often just called something else. Like for Jews, it's called gematria, and it's like they can decipher the Bible based on certain numbers and like find hidden meanings and stuff like that. There are different schools of thought, or like through time, different people have come up with systems. Right. Like there's the Pythagorean system, and we all know Pythagoras from the triangles in our math books. But he had a whole, he was a Greek philosopher, and he had a whole school of like the math of the soul is what he called it, and he had a whole system.
And he also wasn't he the one that like was a vegetarian and didn't want his students to fart? Have you heard about this?
It might be.
He's
I
a
feel
weird
like
dude. Brilliant.
Yeah,
But as brilliant people are, a little bit kooky. A little bit kooky.
All the best people are.
All the best people. Yeah.
But I also think that like when you look through time, just as like this is a not a nice word to use today, like gypsy things, gypsy magic, gypsy whatever. A lot of things have just been put in that pot. And for a long time, that was like gypsy stuff.
Right.
The kind of numerology that I do is called Chaldean numerology, and that was like a nation. But it also seems the more that I have studied it, I'm like, oh, at some point Chaldean kind of just equaled magic. So if something was a little weird, a little esoteric, a little whatever, it was Chaldean.
Got
so
it.
Also, and the thing with Pythagoras, I also think a lot of stuff is just put in that pot. Like, oh, that was that guy. The dude with the triangles, maybe the farts and the vegetarian and whatever, like what kind of system is, and how the systems work together. Chaldean numerology does not have a lot to do with just like the alphabet. It has a lot to do with the sound of letters. And we don't use like vowels and consonants because the original Chaldean alphabet was not like.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So what if my name is not in, like, what if I'm Russian? Obviously there's a different alphabet, right? Or Arabic, right? So, and it's starting me thinking because, my brain, again, the skeptical part of my brain is like, but humans invented language and we invented numbers, but like.
We did. And we also invented like calendars and stuff like that. But we did that by observing the world.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. We invented numbers in order to make sense of things that already existed in our world, like, in order to sort of be able to get our, as I call it, like our advanced monkey minds, create these concepts and these ideas in order to understand our world, right?
Well, the English language, and I mean, those letters and Danish letters that are also like differs from the English language, all these things were translated I do believe like thousands of years ago. Like these are not like in recent times that someone came up with something. A lot of this esoteric knowledge has been passed down from teacher to student again and again and again. And some of it has been like passed on in like hidden form. So when you look at the tarot, the major arcana and stuff like that, these are all numerology descriptions of the name vibrations. So I was like, when I found that out, I was like, oh, sneaky. Someone wanted something to be passed on and become more like, not even mainstream knowledge, but like more accessible, but in a way where it wasn't obvious that this was maybe, not meant for everyone. Because just like, again, a skilled reader often doesn't even need a deck. If you're a tarot reader, you kind of know already, or like it amplifies the tools and gifts you already have. Like I also like with numerology, I see my channeling abilities sometimes happen where I'm like, that was not in the numbers, that came through me, like that was a door that was open for me. So a lot of these systems work with our,
with our own intuition. I mean, honestly, that's how I use tarot decks. Is I started doing intuitive readings just without anything. And then I don't know a lot about doing a proper tarot reading. I'm definitely not a tarot
reader. Is there one?
Pull a card, and then my intuition draws me to something in the card.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I get the download of like what I need to tell the person, right? So it's more like using it as a prompt or a cue or a way for me to connect. Because even when I'm just doing a straight reading and I'm not using the cards, a lot of times I'll get something that's a metaphor. And again, I think this is like a way that my guides are helping me to interpret, because their language is so different than my language, and my brain can only understand like a certain level, right? So, I'll get like, I'll be doing a reading on somebody, I'll be like, why am I getting Reese's peanut butter cups? And then or whatever, right? Something super random. And then what'll come up was like, something that had to do with them as a kid with Reese's peanut butter cups or something like that, right? But it was a way for me to like get an anchor in order to ask them about it, in order to get the information that was needed to, have the reading or whatever. So yeah, I think that's really interesting that, I mean, this gets into like symbology and like chicken and egg stuff, like which came first, like the divine nature of the universe or our description of it, and then you know what I mean, like it's a cycle, right? It's like a Mobius strip. It all like feeds back on itself, right? There's no beginning and no end. So where do you think numerology comes from? Is this like one of the principles of the architecture of God, or like?
I think when we look back to some of the civilizations that had knowledge they couldn't have had, like when we now have certain super precise systems that can calculate, planetary movements or stuff like that. And then we look back at people, like Egyptians and stuff like that, that could calculate the same things or create build the pyramids and other things to some measurements that they should not have been able to figure out. I feel like there's a whole piece that we don't know, and I don't want to claim aliens or anything. I just feel like there's a big recorded part of history of like, how did they come up with this? I don't know. Did they channel it? Did someone come through? What are there like civilizations that had reached a certain level in like keeping, recording, and utilizing more intuitive knowledge on a like broader scale? I see this and I find it's interesting, like when I look at highly spiritual places in the world, like Bali, that has like a very continuous loop of cleaning and heightening the energy and the vibe on just that island. And how when I look at the names of the inhabitants of Bali, more like I have never seen so many harmonious names. I've never seen so many people who have names that support what the soul is there to do. And I'm just like, how do they do that? Like, because they don't have numerology in the same sense.
Right.
They have a different kind. But they're just more high vibrating names. And that's even in like Indonesian or like Balinese, again, languages that I don't have access to in the same way. And I can't put my own system on that system in the same way because they even track time differently, but it all fits.
Yeah.
It all fits.
What I do, I've been to Bali a couple times, and what I do know, and I'm interested in your take on this, is that the names follow the birth order.
They do, and there's a whole status thing about like if you're the first, second, or third person to be born, and in what kind of like caste and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They also, repeat names.
Yeah, you meet a lot of like Katuts there because I think that's like the first or second born, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like there's not that many first names.
Even then the names are, you can't say nicer, but they're gentler. Behind every name there's a vibration. And what I see most people do, and I mean, even when people are like, two people have a kid, and we always pass on the vibrations we know. We always do. We know that vibration, even when we don't pass on the exact name. Like often we pass on the last name. We will still pick names that are like in that line.
Interesting.
So I think also like over time, I'm sure that, the first, the second, or the third, like in Bali, the names for this might have, or the words for that have changed over time, but they're all like way more supportive. Like when I look at numeroscopes, which is like kind of like a horoscope, but for numerology, it's just interesting that most Balinese people have one or two issues, where most Westerners, or like most people I see in my business, also have like so many issues, like vibrational. Like they, people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm like, it's tough, like fertility, getting kids, stuff like that. And I can't clear your infertility, but I can see if there's an energetic pattern there that could be cleared with a name change. I can't promise anything or whatever, but sometimes when people are like, I'm having these, physical manifestations, then I'm like, yeah, well, there's an emotional theme right here placed in your lower body. For a woman, that's your womb.
Right.
It would make sense that over time, if you have this emotional pattern and you can't release it, or, it's one of your I don't even want to call it lessons, but like it's one of your issues, and you have to really work on that to give birth probably to anything bigger. And that's not like it's not a punishment. I never believe that we are punished by our names, but I do think that the menu that your soul is looking at up there before you get down here looks a lot more appealing than what it sometimes feels like down here, where we're like, did I order this? Like, I feel like this is a bad meal for this lifetime.
Right.
I would like to upgrade. Yeah.
So it's more about sort of changing your name to be more in alignment with like what your soul's vibration is and what lessons you're supposed to learn. I mean, again, I don't think of lessons as bad things either. They're just, that's how we learn. I mean, same thing in school, right? You have to do your school lessons in order to learn the information, and then you become wise, right? Like, same thing.
And it's also, you know, like, with that, I also feel like, again, with the filters, if it feels like you constantly have to like squeeze through a too small hole, like if it feels like you have to just make yourself smaller, you know, like maybe break something on your journey across whatever, the savannah, over the mountain, whatever it feels like in your life, that's often the filter saying there's only the hard way to do this. There's only the hard way, and we don't deserve the good way. Like we don't, you know, like a lot of these vibrations are also like the voices of our parents. Because they had the same vibrations.
The voice of your parents, literally. It is their, you know, they chose this. It's their their language. It's their words. That's interesting.
And, you know, again, like with the name vibrations, I really thought about it now that I've studied it and I'm teaching it too, how like choosing expansion, choosing love and light, choosing a more like gentle, self-loving way of approaching our life, or like what we want to build in the world, what kind of legacy we want to pass on, what kind of person, what kind of, you know, how we want other people to look to us. Like all of these different ways of looking at it are often more available when you have a more harmonious name, or if you work so hard on that freaking lesson that you crack it open and you find the gold within it. But it's not like you fail. Like, I just feel like I had someone who was like, well, if you got that name, shouldn't you just learn to live with it? And then like, well, then I don't think they should make name change legal. Like if that, I feel like if this is the rules of the game, then we can't change our name. Now that we can, and I know that it works, then I'm like, I'm not cheating here. I'm just choosing to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
And you don't know until you try. Like I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life. And every time I've been like, would I rather just know like what the other side of this feels like? Would I rather just know what it would feel like to be married to this guy, living in the US, living in LA instead of New York?
Right.
Writing this book, saying yes to this thing. Would I rather know the other side of this, or would I just like play it safe? And rarely do I want to play it safe.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I'm definitely like way more of an adventurous, let's try something new person than I am.
Yeah.
Sort of a, you know, well, you know, it's good enough. I'm curious, it just occurred to me, what do you think about all of the different traditions and cultures where people have multiple names, or have more than one name, or like have secret names, or, you know what I mean? Like, like, how does that affect people or affect cultures?
We're just going to jump to Bali one more time. Then
let's go. I love Bali. Let's go back to
Bali. Interesting thing with the Balinese. I mean, I love that when a kid is born, they are not left on the ground or on a lower level for the first 3 months of their life. They're continuously carried and kept close because the Balinese people believe for the first 3 months of your life, you're not fully here. You're still kind of in that dream state. You're still kind of calling in your soul. You're still like trying out this thing. And they say that if, and they do, you know, if toddlers, young kids are very, very sick, like very, very, very sick, and they get better, they don't die, then they change their name because they're like, clearly this was not working.
Oh, interesting. And
I'm not talking about like the common cold. I'm of course talking about something where we're like, why is this big thing happening to this small body that hasn't even like it's not fully here yet.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Why is it learning
doesn't
this
even,
karmic lesson right now?
yeah,
of all
like, why,
times?
you know, mom is not that far away. Like, why is everything
Right.
going on like that? They changed their names, and in lots, I mean, a lot more societies than I think we think in our like Western mind. There is that like mark from not just like childhood to teenager, but also from teenager to adulthood. And then also from adulthood, like if you, you know, when people lose their partners, they become widows, that there might even be like a later in life name that you claim and you pull in. There's a lot of these stages. And also, again, that people can name themselves, which is like so far from our mind. Like, oh, we got our name from our parents. Of course we did.
Yeah.
I have a lot of clients who really want to honor their family and their lineage, and I love it. But I'm also like, are you trying to make them happy? You know, are you trying to like pick a name that would make them happy? They were clearly happy with what you had, probably. So if you want to pick a new one, that's okay. You know, it's really okay. It's okay to name yourself.
Yeah.
It's interesting with the societies, like the reason that numerology is not banned, but very not very widely used in France is actually because back in the, I think it's like 17 something, numerology was so huge, like the tarot was huge and numerology were huge, and people would consult multiple people before naming their kids. And in the end, the French government was like, this is not working. Now a kid has to be named within 24 hours of their birth, or we will name them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like, it's also been like in different parts of the world, you know, the reactions to like the freedom of naming things and naming people.
Yeah.
And also even naming like, you know, your business or your cat or whatever. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, yeah, you were talking about the freedom of naming people. I mean, this sort of touches back on what we were talking about before, but like naming is a colonizing act, whether it's naming a person or a country or whatever. It's a way of, or an object, right? It's a way of sort of asserting your power over the thing, right? I just went to go see, actually in LA, I just went to go see Hannah Gadsby's new show. Do you know her?
No.
She's a comedian. She's from Australia. You should watch on Netflix. Her special is called Nanette. It's a fantastic, like, she breaks down comedy and starts talking about like feminism and gender roles and all.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to watch this.
You'll like it. I can already tell by talking to you. You're going to like this. So yeah, watch Nanette. I had to watch it like 3 times in a row when I first watched it because I was like, there's a lot here. It's amazing. And it's hysterical too because she's a comedian. But she was talking about naming in this latest show, and she was talking about how a lot of the anatomical things were named by men, right? And so, you know, there's this power, and she jokingly is talking about like if women were, you know, at the conference table where they were discussing like how to name things, and she talks about how, you know, we would never call testicles. They would have, like, somebody would have been like, well, how about calling him Karen's handful? Because it's about what will fit in Karen's hand, right?
Yeah, that's funny. That's good.
But you know, so she's joking about it, but it's this idea that the person who gets to name it's like history is written by the victors, right? It's sort of the same concept of like, and so I love this idea of, even like, despite all the numerology thing and sort of the better alignment, like this idea of taking back our power by naming ourselves and having it be something that is more in align. And like you said, there's not like, you'll get one name, right? You get this list and you get to pick. That power of like colonizing yourself, right? Like being your own, you're the person that's deciding what your power is, you know?
And also, you know, rewriting the story of like, if you want to, this is an Icelandic and Faroe Island thing, and I'm sure there's more places where you can put daughter at the end of a name and use as a last name instead of son or sen, which we're so used to.
Right.
And I mean, when I was sitting there with the lists, I was like, I am definitely not picking a name that ends in sen or son, because I am no one's son. And I find it really weird that they're not more like daughter endings if we really want to do, or just non-gender. Like my last name now is Wilder, and I did not have a sin or sen last name before, but I was very clear on like, I want something that's not gendered, not masculine, not feminine, not anything. I mean, I personally love names that are more like descriptive of nature or emotion or something beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like being named after someone else's name is kind of like limiting. I'm like, if you want to be named Rainbow as a last name, which is actually not uncommon, go for it. Go for it. Like, why not?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, I mean, that's also like, in Denmark, numerology is really big. And there's a whole thing about like, oh, if you've been to a numerologist, you have to be named something really weird. To which I say, well, these people, I don't pick, you know, other people pick. If you find it weird that they are actually allowing, you know, their own imagination, their own like sense of style and how it looks and sounds and is written out, if you find it weird, then maybe we have been a little too conformed. Maybe we are a little too like, this is how a name looks and sounds. Like, you know, if people want to be named something weird, it's kind of the same as like with little kids. If you ask them what they want to be named, they come up with some really fantastical, crazy, amazing things.
Yeah.
Because they're not thinking about what mom and dad would say or how it's going to look on their social security card or something.
Right.
They're just like, this is what I like. This is what I love. And when grown people get to do that too, they often get to like express some of that like inner childlike sense of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've seen in your work, is there a difference in like the type of like emotions or the type of power that gets reclaimed for men renaming themselves versus women? Is there a difference?
I feel like it's very specific to the person. I have men who come to me and they can tell, and I think that might be apt for many more spiritually open men, that they are aware of where the toxic masculinity or toxic femininity have like pushed them into a corner. Like, I do have men where, you know, I have different options where I think like, oh, maybe this would be good or that would be good. And then, you know, I ask people what they want, you know, and they usually talk themselves into one of the options I have for them. And I have seen there that like some of the men are like, I would like more feminine qualities. And feminine qualities does not mean weakness. It does not mean, I don't even want to like queer, gay, whatever, like these weird things that we can have in our head. It often means that they want to be able to receive. They want to be able to chill. They want to be able to not only have like tools that are like fighting tools, you know, they honor, I mean, in numerology, we have 9 base numbers and everyone in the world have like a combination of these base numbers. And some of these base numbers are more feminine in nature, meaning they have life goals and themes that are more about receiving, creating beauty, being emotional, having fun, being creative. And when a man have these life goals, he might have a tougher time in the world because he does not, from his essence, from his core, operate in like a hard, masculine, active, punch my way through the wall to my goal way. And since society does not really allow us to or men in that, you know, don't allow them to just honor their feminine nature, often a name change can help that, you know, honor that femininity. I don't even want to call it feminine, but like more receptive.
The yin quality.
Yeah, the yin quality. Yeah, just more of that. And I also see, I mean, a lot of women who are born to be leaders. And ooh, do we hate that? Ooh, those little bossy ladies get called all kinds of things.
Well, bossy in and of itself we never call men bossy.
No.
Men are, you know, assertive or take charge or whatever, right? Like,
but hearing, sometimes it's just a confirmation. Okay, I am here to lead. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm here to lead. She said I was supposed to do it, so I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And like hearing the life goals that they have to do with, for example, you know, leadership, being authentic, stepping in front, leading no matter if people are following, being authentic even if you're shamed for it, being in integrity even if you might lose money. like all of these, like being reminded of who they truly are, and then also maybe getting some name vibrations that are a little more pushy. Because often I also see people who have, you know, leadership as one of their life goals, that they might have some name vibrations that are making them extremely aware of other people's emotions, which is fine. But a leader should not be all up in the emotional life of whoever they lead.
Right.
That's a boundary issue.
Right.
You lead, they want to follow, they follow, you know. You sell
Right.
things, they want to pay, they buy it. You can't, you know, micromanage everyone around you while having a big picture. So
Right.
sometimes that's so, you know, what I feel like I sometimes do is like closing the holes in the aura, or like the armor of like, okay, well, if you have a mental warrior goal in life, then we need to make you sharp and strong and trusting your inner intuition. You cannot go around putting out other people's fires, getting distracted, loving all the drama that other people have, so you don't have to deal with your own drama and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I think there's like, you know, a number of ways that we can get in touch with, again, what those particular life lessons or goals or, you know, problems, or, you know, that we're each of us as an individual is supposed to be working on while we have our, you know, 80 to 100 years on this planet, or whatever it ends up being for this lifetime, right? And I think that that's part of, you know, that's part of our intuition. I talk about that a lot in my own work of like, you know, that big question we all have of like, what am I doing here? What am I supposed to do with my life? Right. And not just necessarily on a work level, but just, you know, in general, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Well, how am I supposed to be spending my time here? And that's interesting to me that this is sort of a, you know, and we were talking about name change, but what you're really talking about is getting even like more and deeper information about that zone of genius, you know, that sort of like, what is it? What are your particular things you're supposed to be working on? And the more that you can sort of like, I talk about it like a compass, like if that's your north, right? The more that you can figure out what your innate north is and like head that direction, it almost doesn't matter like what steps you take, as long as you're heading in that direction, you'll get there, right?
Yeah. And you'll learn. That's also the thing, you know, throughout life, especially in the beginning, we will fail repeatedly at what we're supposed to be doing, or, you know, like in that general direction.
Right.
And every failure or every like stumble tells us something. And then when we start getting good at something after 10,000 hours of practice or whatever, and people are like, oh, you're so good, it looks so natural, it doesn't look hard at all. Right. You know, sometimes when people say stuff like that to me, I'm like, you know, I've been training my whole life for some of the stuff I'm doing right now. I didn't know I was doing it, but I was. Right. And some of the things that are so natural to me, where people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I cannot teach you, but I can keep doing it, and you're welcome to watch, because I have to do the same with other people. I'm like, how do you do that? And I know that I can't actually get the answer from that person, but I can look at it or like read it or whatever, consume whatever it is. And then maybe it can trigger something in me where I can get better at it too.
Interesting.
But it's just like, I mean, also like the lessons I have, I'm like, you know, I have a lesson about boundaries in my life. So that's been like a constant freaking struggle with my family, with my friends, with my ex-lovers, with my business, with my clients. And in the end, I had this conversation with someone else who have like part of the same lesson. And I was like, we're going to end up being those people where other people are like, you're so good at that boundary thing. Yeah. I want to learn. And I can just say like, well, 10,000 hours or more.
Yeah.
That's what it takes. Even if it's a gift, you know, even if there's a gift in there.
I think that's so interesting, because something that I've been working on, I love the way you put that about like teaching people versus having people just watch you. Because something that I've been working on with my own business and my own, like how I show up and stuff like that, is like, I'm such a natural teacher. I mean, I was a teacher for years. For 10 years, I had a teaching and tutoring business. Like I love teaching and I love learning. I love being on both sides of it, but is really understanding that I don't have to have a lesson where I break it down into like, okay, here's step one, and then then you do step two, and then you do step three. That sometimes it's just about like showing up and doing it. And that's how I teach people, right? There doesn't have to be like necessarily as methodical of a thing. And especially with what you and I do, like, you know, working with intuitive gifts and working with stuff like that. A lot of times it is just showing up and doing it. Like there isn't really a way to explain it. You know, maybe it's that, you know, our language capabilities are limited. Again, we have these monkey brains that can only conceptualize so much, right? I always joke about like, if I was trying to teach, you know, a squirrel calculus, I could spend the next 80 years trying to teach the squirrel calculus and it wouldn't ever get it. Its brain isn't there, you know?
Yeah.
Not at this point in squirrel evolution anyway. But, you know, the same thing with our minds and like the divine mind. Like my brain is incapable of understanding like so many principles of the universe. You know, it's like squirrel calculus to me, right? So it's interesting to think about, like, there is a lot of this stuff that we can't necessarily put into language or can't necessarily teach in this like human brain to human brain type of way. And one of the ways we could do that is, again, just by doing it, and then people absorb it energetically, or they download it from, you know, all of a sudden, and then they have access to whatever blueprint I have access to from the divine mind, and they're able to more easily download it too, or however it is that happens, right? But I think that's fascinating and interesting and very helpful for me. So thank you, to think about that, like,
Yeah, well, it's also just out of our hands. So much of the stuff, like even if we make a lesson plan, even if we write down chapters in a book, even if we have a whole idea about how other people are supposed to consume something, you know, even if we, you know, I think about that with people who cut movies, where they're like, oh, there's this rhythm, there's going to be this sound, this light. He's going to say that, she's going to say that. And some people might watch that movie, not get the rhythm, not like the sound, be like, that was a shitty movie. And other people are going to be like, oh my God, this is like the one movie that explains everything.
Right. Yeah. Or music's the same way. Like we all have
Yeah.
such different taste in music.
And also, you know, different time, like some music sounds really good at certain times of day, and in the middle of the night or early in the morning, we're like, no, it needs to be different.
Yeah.
You know, I have definitely had teachers where I've been sitting in their class or whatever and thought like, I'm not getting it, this is boring as AF, and then come back like 10 days or 10 months later and been like, I am finally hearing it. Why have you never said this before? And the teacher goes like, this is the class I'm teaching. This is the same thing. I don't know where you've been. We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
So just also know, I mean, I think this also like, it's a control thing that many teachers and leaders have, where we kind of want to control a little bit, like how it's perceived, but we just can't.
Right.
We can't.
Right.
We got to be in our integrity while we teach, and hopefully teach something we're passionate about, because that, I mean, if you're not passionate, then it gets really tough.
Yeah, totally.
It's really tough to convey anything if you're not passionate about it.
Yeah, that control thing is huge. I think we have such a desire to control things and name things and classify them and, you know, make sense of them, right? We're big sense-making machines is what we are. That's our brain's job, is to be a sense-making machine. We have, 4 trillion pieces of sensory information coming in at every second. And so, like, gotta have some sort of filter for that, right? But we have then this illusion of control, you know, this illusion that we, you know, that we're in charge, right? Like, I'm going to make a decision right now, right? But you're making decisions based on like the limitations of that filter. You're making decisions based on like all these other external cues that you're not even aware of, but that you're somehow picking up, right? And so, yeah, just sort of realize that whether we're teaching or whether we're learning or whether we're just existing in the world, that like that control is an illusion, and that the more that you can sort of just be like, I am just going to relax into my intuition, or relax into the fact that there's, you know, other forces at work here that I'm not aware of right now, but that are principles of the universe, just like gravity is, right? Or something that we do understand. You know, the easier it becomes, the less resistance you have to put up and the less of a fight you have to put up. So any tool, whether it's numerology or whatever, that can sort of help us get more in touch with like what that is for us, the ways that we're supposed to just relax into things and let the flow
allowing
happen.
allowing it.
The better it is.
My old acting teacher would say, for many people, which I think it is for many people, it is a question of give in, give over, give way to whatever it is that wants to be expressed through you, and stop judging it. There are many eloquent quotes on this, but like, stop judging it. Like, stop. If that's what you want to be doing with your life, if that's what lights you up, it does not matter who said something about it that was negative. Like, you just got to go do it, because also the clarity comes from doing. You got to be doing it, or you don't know if you want to do it. Like, I have had a lot of amazing ideas. Ideas are never a problem for me. But then sometimes when I start doing it, I'm like, oh, okay, this was just an idea for like the fun of it.
Giving yourself permission to not follow through with it if your intuition says that it's not thing, and giving yourself permission to fail at it, because you might be like, oh God, that was terrible what I just made or what I just did, and that's okay. That's learning that wasn't the right thing for you, you know.
But also, you know, the imperfectness. I mean, I'm a 1 in Chaldean numerology, so there's like a really big perfectionistic streak in me where I can see the perfect version of things. I can always make it better. You know, I am efficiency, you know, the highest level you can get that shit in. I'm really, really good at it. I'm really, really annoying to my friends. I'm really, really annoying when my dad wants me to help with something, or I want him to help with something, because I'm like, this could be better. It's really annoying. But when it comes to my business, I've decided that every single thing I'm going to make is going to be imperfect. And that's not a good sales trick, but it's never going to get to be on sale or for someone to buy if I don't let go of it and be like, here is my imperfect offering. They're all imperfect, by the way. There is no perfect thing out there. There is nothing that's going to complete you. I'm sorry. There is no sofa that's going to complete your
right. Perfect is a concept, not an actual thing that exists. Right. There is no perfect. And what is that saying? Like, perfection is the enemy of progress? Something like that.
Yeah. But you know, like, I mean, I've heard people say it, and I have to have that little mantra. I used to have it like stuck to my screen, that like it sells better that if it exists. And I'm just like, you know, I'm just like, okay, well then I'm going to create some imperfect things. And when I'm like pretty sure that tinkering more with it is not going to make it better, then I'm just going to send it out into the world.
Yep. Because it has qualities already that you don't even realize it has, just from you working on it. It's not necessarily the things you've identified that you want to achieve with it, but you've realized that, you know, putting it out there in the world is it's going to have your energy and your vibration in a way, you know. Again,
and someone
just by
is
you
looking
showing
for
up.
it right now. Most of our ideas, stuff that comes up, someone is looking, they're Googling it, they're asking their friends, they're fantasizing about like that one thing I wish someone would make or write or say or share. Right. And we're sitting on it being like, oh, but it's not perfect. We're like, it's
or someone, all the other, like, you know, imposter messages like, oh, somebody else is doing this and they're probably doing it better, or, you know, whatever, like all those things we tell ourselves. So
just get it out there.
Yeah, just get it out there. Creativity, man. It's really hard to honor our creativity, but it's so important, because your creativity, my creativity, is the essence of what makes me me and not anyone else, right? So
and I mean, you need to those imperfect things, they need to be out there for people to find.
And creativity is a process. You know, when I'm talking to people about meditation, I always say that it's called meditation practice for a reason. I am still practicing, you know, like, even though I've been doing it for over 10 years. And creativity of any sort is like a creativity practice. You have to keep creating new things and trying things and reiteration and whatever, and, you know, see what sticks. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I feel like I know more about numerology now, and I can sort of fit it into like my like sciencey brain that wants to like know why everything works. And that's totally fascinating. And now I want to know like what my name says.
Yes, don't we all? Like, okay, now I get it. How does it work for me?
I know. Because it's all about me at the end of the day.
Of course it is.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on, and your energy and your spirit, and sharing all of this. So if people want to know more about you or want to know more about this, where's the best place for them to find you?
So you can find me at novaleewilder.com. If you want to like learn about your own base numbers and all the stuff we were talking about, name vibrations, I did write a book. It's called A Little Bit of Numerology. Good. Good that I can remember what my own book is called. a little bit of numerology, and it's available nationwide. So, Amazon, IndieBound, wherever you get your books, you can get it there.
And if I get this book, it'll like take me step by step through how to figure some of this
you'll
stuff
learn
out.
about your base numbers, how to figure out what they are, what your life lessons and stuff like that. You learn about 52 name vibrations and what they mean. So maybe you want to do other people than just yourself.
Yeah.
And then how to apply it to a numeroscope, which is where it gets, nerdy and advanced, but you'll start getting a sense of like, what can I see? And I do a case study on John Lennon and one on Oprah, just to like help people to see how, because I also feel like there's a deep integrity when you have any kind of tool that helps you look below the surface. Are we allowed to read people who have not given us permission? Or are we allowed to share about them?
Right.
There's a whole ethical question there. So I try to only share and do case studies and stuff like that about or with people who've either passed or have already shared way beyond what I share in my readings. Because then I'm like, okay, you put out there these things that are very concrete. I'm going to share a little bit about like just the patterns and the themes that I see that, always fit.
Right.
And also I have a podcast, the Numerology Podcast.
Oh, cool.
So if it's nice to listen to me talk, then one can listen to that too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It is nice to listen to you talk. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all of your wisdom that you shared and sort of this new way of looking at things and new tools that maybe some people didn't know about that they can use now to make, again, more sense of your life and figure out that big question of why am I here? What am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing on this planet this time around? So
just nerd out a little bit. It's good to be a little nerdy. It's good. It's good. I really like that part of myself. And when I meet other people where I'm like, oh, you're a little nerdy in this area. I like that. I recognize myself in it.
I embrace my nerdiness 100% because
it's important.
It is. All right. Thank you so much, Novalee. I really appreciate it. And guess that's it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.